Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius are exactly trine right now. And as we enter this configuration known as Barbeau's basket, which I talked about in my last video, these two outer planets, Uranus and Pluto, have meaning beyond just the fact that they're part of this Barbeau basket. Two of the major actors in this Barbeau basket. I wanted to talk about this from an evolutionary astrology point of view. This this explains deeper ramifications of what's going on right now. So an exact waxing trine between Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius is a monumental signature of collective acceleration, liberation, and integration of revolutionary shifts in human consciousness. So in the mid-1960s, 1965 to 1966, you know how when we look at history, that period is marked as significant because all of a sudden there was so many social upheavals, whether it's civil rights, environmentalism, women's liberation, anti-war movements. There was a whole lot that just kind of exploded around that time period, right? So the way astrology, evolutionary astrology, explains this is that a seed was planted around then, and that seed was the Pluto-Uranus conjunction, and they both conjoined in the sign of Virgo. So if we look at it in evolutionary astrology, we look at the cycles between planets. So for example, every month we look at there's a new moon and there's a full moon. So the new moon is a conjunction between the sun and the moon. Then we have the first quarter, which is the square between the sun and the moon. And then full moon is the opposition. And then we have the waning cycle of the moon. There's a square that happens. It's called the third quarter square. And then we get to the beginning of the circle for another new moon, right? So that's that same relationship between the sun and the moon. We in evolutionary astrology, we extend that to other planets. And with these outer planets, especially Pluto and Uranus, they have deep meaning in evolutionary astrology as to as to our collective soul. So like the cycle between Pluto is the evolutionary intent and deep desire of the collective soul. And then Uranus is the mechanism of liberation, individuation, and deconditioning. And so both these planets met. They had their new moon at their conjunction in Virgo between 65 and 1966. So that's when the seed was planted. And it was one of profound existential crisis and a collective desire to fix or purify a deeply flawed society. Virgo correlates to crisis, analysis, and adjustments to systemic neuroses. The social upheavals of the 60s, civil rights, environmentalism, anti-war movements, women's liberation, were the collective soul waking up to the reality that the established order was sick and required radical, detailed realignment, Virgo, to serve humanity better. So then, so that's when the seed was planted. And then in the 1990s, you know how people say they look back to the 1990s positively and say it was such a great decade and all that? So that's when they had their sextile, which is a soft aspect, meaning that the energies of the planets are able to work together and facilitate positive developments. And so at the beginning of the 90s, Pluto was in Scorpio and Uranus was in Capricorn. and Scorpio and Capricorn are a sextile. Then by the end of the 90s, we had Pluto and Sagittarius and Uranus and Aquarius. And Sag and Aquarius are sextile signs. So then we had in between in the 2010s, like specifically 2012 to 2015, we had a square between them, Uranus and Pluto. And the square is always very testing, and it's not easy flowing. And so we had a violent frictional clash between the past and the future, where the systemic adjustments seated in the 60s had to fight for survival against entrenched institutional power. So the square was, Pluto was in Capricorn and Uranus was in Aries, and Capricorn and Aries clash in how to lead because they're cardinal signs. So right now, fast forward to now we're at the trine, which is 120 degrees between the planets. And trine is, it's actually even better than the sextile of the 90s. Because it's the same element. Not only is it like the same gender, it's the same element. So right now it would be air signs: Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, and Uranus and Gemini. They're both in air signs. So a trine is an aspect of ease, integration, and creative actualization. The immense friction and trauma we experienced collectively over the last decade has now broken through the dam. And this is a waxing trine that represents a period where the revolutionary ideals of the 1960s, which were fought for so bitterly during the 2010s, can now be harmoniously and rapidly implemented into society without the same paralyzing resistance. It is a time of structural harvest and forward momentum. So Pluto in Aquarius is the collective evolutionary intent. Pluto represents the deepest, most unconscious security patterns of the soul and its evolutionary requirement to evolve by destroying what no longer serves. Jeffrey Wolf Green, who's kind of the father of evolutionary astrology, taught that Uranus represents, that Aquarius correlates with trauma, but also to ultimate liberation, to objectivity and group consciousness. With Pluto now in Aquarius, the collective evolutionary intent is to radically decondition humanity from the authoritarian patriarchal control mechanisms of the past. Pluto's prior transit through Capricorn. We were experiencing a collective shattering of consensus reality. The trauma of the past is surfacing not to paralyze us, but to allow humanity to view its history with total detached objectivity. The goal of Pluto in Aquarius is the individuation of the human species, recognizing that true security comes not from top-down authorities, but from horizontal cooperative communities that celebrate the unique genius of the individual. And then Uranus and Gemini is the mechanism of awakening. So Uranus is a planet that acts out Pluto's evolutionary desires. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So it's significant that Uranus is transiting the sign of its lower octave. Gemini rules the localized mind, the nervous system, language, and the gathering of data. Uranus here acts like a lightning bolt to the collective nervous system. So our human neurology is literally being rewired right now. We're witnessing sudden telepathic like breakthroughs in how information is shared, rapid tech advancements, AI, decentralized media. Uranus and Gemini shatters old dualities and binary thinking, forcing humanity to synthesize vastly different perspectives into a holistic understanding. So this synthesis, because both Gemini and Aquarius are in air signs, the transformation happening right now is deeply mental, social, and communicative. And the trine allows for a frictionless flow of energy between the higher universal mind, Pluto and Aquarius, Uranian energy, and the conscious intellect, Uranus and Gemini. So the collective trauma that has bound the human soul for millennia is now finding rapid avenues for release through sudden, brilliant flashes of insight. The information required to liberate humanity from its consensus state hypnosis is moving at lightning speed. Because this is a trine, the collective resistance is low. The new paradigms are being absorbed into the collective mind as self-evident truths. So with all this being said, I urge you all not to detach, which is, or dissociate, which is a shadow side of the air element, and to actively participate in this mental revolution. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time.